Oh, oh, thank you so much, Jim. So then, with that, do I call upon the evaluators to evaluate each of the speeches? Let's see, Adam Miller, I believe. Adam, if you'd be so kind to offer us an evaluation of Cassandra's speech. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Cheryl. Cheryl, or Cassandra, sorry. It was a pleasure to hear you talk about your mother as the primary role model in your life, person you admire. It was the selection of your mother was it's very applicable. Most of us are, I think all of us have mothers. And generally a mother is a very influential part of a person's life. The structure of the speech was very, very well done. Like when you're talking about someone who's played a major role in your life, using a timeline structure is usually very, very effective. And so you started out by telling us about how your mother was influential in your early life, and then struggles that your mother encountered raising you and your siblings. The part about the bus ride to work kind of resonated with me because early in my life I was very reliant on Milwaukee County buses myself. I think I have taken the bus out to Brookfield from the east side. I don't know what part of the city you grew up in, but I know that that's a very lengthy bus ride, and that must have been really tough for a mother raising kids, and even more so trying to commute down to Chicago, taking the bus to downtown and then downtown Milwaukee, and then commuting from there to Chicago is a long trip. So that must have taken a lot of time out of her life. She must not have had much time to even think about interacting with her family much, just coming home, going to bed, getting up and heading out on the bus. But it's great that she had the support of her extended family. That's always really useful. I know my siblings have relied on my parents some for help with childcare, and I know that it helps a lot. I haven't had kids myself, but I know the effect from personal experience. I know the effect it had on my siblings, especially the one of my sisters who has lived in town pretty much her entire life. And then you followed up with regrets that you couldn't tell your mother how much your mother meant to her. I think that happens to all of us. We get old enough to tell our parents how much we appreciate them, and suddenly it seems like they're not around anymore. But it's always good when we can try to slip that in when we can. And as a ending to the speech, you gave us some more examples of people who have been instrumental to your life, and towards the very end, you connected more with us in talking about your progress in Toastmasters and specific people at the club who were more instrumental in your life. Gladys, Kathy, Chris Poole. I think that's a really good connection with the audience and a really good ending to the speech. Just makes it more inclusive and helps connect with people. Thank you, Cassandra.
Thanks, Adam.
Okay, so with that, now do we want to get feedback from each member here about Cassandra's speech? And let's see, Chris, would you like to go first?
Sure. Thank you, Cheryl. I really like that you focused on 3 people or 3 different aspects of who you admire based on your time. And I know that this was your first pass and you need to tighten up your speech. I would focus on your mom and Toastmasters. Find a way to pull in your audience. So the beginning of your speech tonight, you could probably eliminate the first beginning sentences because you're speaking to that different audience. Maybe start with some open-ended questions. What did you learn from, or is maybe, do you remember your first mentor? Because you mentioned your mom was your first mentor. What did you learn from that person? Did they push you out of your comfort zone? Have you had a lifelong learning? Have you ever told that person how much they mean to you? Because if you're asking those questions, you're kind of telling your story to those questions. But if you open with that, you got the audience kind of thinking their own way. I think that's the biggest part of it. And then in the end, you brought in the DISC assessment. I would not even bring it up for when you're refining the speech for international, but use that DISC assessment and that information as a level 2 speech on your communication style. So you can still use that, but just not for this focus. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. Let's see, Adam, would you like to give your feedback and Adam Barrett feedback and insights on Cassandra's speech?
Yes. So, Cassandra, I really liked the introspective way that you talked about your mother, and you did so in a vulnerable way that kind of mentioned at the time you thought it was tough, and maybe I got the impression that you felt like at the time it was unfair, but also how as you've gotten older and you've been able to look back on it, you realized that maybe she did a lot more and it was with a greater purpose than you understood at the time. And I think that kind of vulnerability really helps open up yourself and your speech to an audience and allows them to feel engaged. So I thought that was great. I guess the only thing I would consider is along the lines of what Chris said towards the end when you were discussing your time at Toastmasters. I think you did well, but I also felt as if it was a very radical change from the beginning, where with your mother, it was this very trying to find the right words here. It was an extremely tough thing to understand at the time, and then it felt maybe like the Toastmasters piece was added on just in order to meet the time requirements, or maybe it was that you didn't practice that one as much, or something. I think there is a little bit of a chance to improve upon that and kind of make it have sort of the same flow as the rest of your talk. I guess what I'm trying to say is it felt a little disjointed between the two pieces, but overall I think it was very well done, and I think there is so much good in that speech, especially in that first half, to work with.
Thank you very much, Adam. I appreciate that. Jim, would you like to give your insights and feedback?
Thank you. I would second the motion of cutting off this very tail end, the self-evaluation part. I think in addition to studying the recording and thinking of how to edit things down and use the editing down and cutting to focus what you want, the message you want to extend to your audience, maybe change the focus, not quite so much of just people you admire, but your mother and perhaps a few Toastmasters, but what you learned from them, the lessons that came across. I think it's the background of the story with your mother and how the situation she was in and how she had to struggle. It is great as an example of what she did and what the lessons you learned from that, and how she managed despite the hardships. And you can condense the part about how she had to travel, not only work, but travel so long to get to work, first the one and then later to Chicago. But just kind of try to really narrow your focus if you can, and use the editing process to along with that and help with that. And I think, and when you get into the Toastmasters part, if you want to add that, why you got into Toastmasters as far as maybe connect it with what you learned from your mother's example, and what you then, the situation you found yourself in, or what you wanted to change or accomplish. And then if you want to bring in that you learned from several people in Toastmasters, and maybe mention who they were, but then very quickly the specific things that they helped you with, or the specific things that so far Toastmasters has helped you accomplish, and follow that stream, because you want to be able to pass a message on to your audience, something, a lesson or multiple lessons that they can then use for themselves. Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you very much, Jim, for that thorough and insightful evaluation. Let's see here. Kathy, would you like to offer your insights and feedback?
Sure, I'll make mine short and sweet. First, I want to congratulate you, Cassandra. I know that this was short notice for you to prepare your content. So the ideas and the suggestions that everybody is sharing, take with a grain of salt and weed through once you actually have more time to rehearse. 4 specific suggestions that I want to offer. Number 1, whatever you end up editing, punch up your speech title, right? This is something that your judges as well as your audience will hear before you even speak a word. So your title can really add excitement or drama, or present a seed for your audience before you even begin to speak. So give that some thought. Number 2, and I've noticed this quite often when you present, but I notice with your monitor, you have a glare on your glasses. So you might want to consider experimenting where, if you have to use your monitor in order to have the camera lens in front of you, or maybe you need to put like a piece of paper over the screen, or maybe you need to position the lighting a little bit different. But I would invite you to experiment over the next month or so to find a way that doesn't have the glare. I don't want to invite you to take your glasses off, because if you need to have your glasses on to see, we just want to find a way to prevent the glare. Number 3, smile more. You have an engaging storytelling, and even the facial expressions when you are talking about something that's very difficult. I can sense that through your eyes and the little creases in your forehead and the way your eyebrows move. But it wasn't until you talked about Gladys that you first broke a smile. And because of the length of time that you spoke until you got to Gladys, it seemed very long for me. So I would invite you to smile more, maybe sprinkle in a little more humor or laughter. And that is the 4th point and suggestions I want to offer to you. When you talk about your mom, maybe finding a way using that triad formula, where you use 3 adjectives to describe her, something serious, something else serious, but then on the 3rd one, make it a surprising element that we might not expect. And that's a real simple way to add in a sense of humor and a little more excitement into your speech. And again, on that 3rd one, maybe that's the place where you can change the vocal variety to accompany the line that you use. So again, punch up the title, take different approaches to experiment with the eyeglass glare, smile more, and add just a little more humor. But I think that you're on a good path, Cassandra.
Thank you so much, Kathy, for your evaluation. Very insightful and informative. And Justin, would you like to offer your insights?
Thank everybody. I don't have much to say other than I appreciate the vulnerability. I feel like it's always a good thing to, I don't know, there's people in the audience that probably can relate to your story, and the fact that you stood up there and, you know, said something about that might have had a, you know, a cool kind of I don't know, a down to earth, rooted, soul vibing moment with you, you know, the speaker. So I feel like good for you. I think that's pretty cool that you opened up and talked about that.
Oh, thank you so much, Justin, for your evaluation. And lastly, Tracy, would you like to offer your insights and advice?
Yes, thank you, Cheryl. So being the last one here to provide some input, I don't really have a lot. Everyone has already said what any of the thoughts that I would have had. I would reiterate, I really got into, Casandra, your story about your mom. And when you left that story to go to the other stories, I was like, no, I want to still listen to the story about your mom. And I wanted to hear more. And I'm wondering if, because for me, it's kind of all about the stories. Was there ever a moment that you shared with your mom, or you and your sister shared with your mom, that, you know, was a little bit warm and fuzzy? Or did she ever share with you her maybe how tired she might have been? Or have you and your sister ever rehashed or gone over some of the memories? I'd be curious about that. And I would like to hear a little bit more about your mom's personality, other than, you know, she might have been distant and was very hardworking, but there are probably other elements of her personality that, and you said in your speech that you share a lot of those. So I would be curious to know what they are. But I thought it was a great speech. You totally had me enthralled. I really enjoyed it. And thanks for doing this and representing Cream City. Yay.
Thank you so much, Tracy. Thank you, everyone, for your evaluations. Yes, I agree. Cassandra's speech was very good. I enjoyed the narrative quality. I enjoyed hearing about her mother. And yes, I agree with Tracy, maybe more stories about your mother, more anecdotes, more funny things that you and your sister remember. You know, it's good to remember things about our loved ones. And I feel maybe a little more vocal variety, but I think, you know, you're very good at storytelling. I can tell, very good narrative quality. I would even encourage you to maybe even write down more stories about your family and your mother. So that's my piece of it. So thank you so much.
Did Adam Miller give feedback for Cassandra? Because I didn't record a time for him. He did?
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
I missed it. I got Adam Barrett, but I didn't have Adam Miller. Okay, thank you.
So then next we have